Let's be innovative. Let's challenge the norm. Let's raise the bar. Let's be the elite.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by Butt Kicker, are ready to race.
From the Battle of Upstate New York to a duel in the desert, the Lionheart IndyCar Series rolls on in 2022. Just 7 days ago, we witnessed a battle for the ages as Alexander Van der Stant stopped the Crouch train from stopping in Watkins Glen to see the power slide driver take his first career victory. Tonight, though, sees a stark contrast, from a flowing road course to a fast and furious short oval, racing under the night lights. This is Phoenix, and this is the MOZA Racing Phoenix 200. Hello everyone and welcome back to RaceSpotTV for coverage of the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra comfortable cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be here alongside Justin Prince as we get set for a blockbuster race. 12 months ago, we saw Jason Galvin enter victory lane in what was an emotional outcome. Today, though, it's full focus on surviving for 200 laps. Let's dive straight into our butt kicker pre-race show. And Justin, sometimes I get chills when I think of the finish last year. It was the thumbs up canter down 200, and of course Jason Galvin racing in the thumbs up canter down LPM machine. Was very emotional to head into victory lane. Today, though, as we look at our next level racing schedule, we're racing for the 8th time this season. We're getting to that 1/3 marker of the season. Can anyone stop the Kraus train?
That's the major question, I think, on everybody's minds, including his fellow competitors, because, yes, he didn't break through for a victory last time out, but he was darn close to the mix of the battle with Alexander Van de Sande. He has been on a tear and a half. 7 top 10s, 7 top 5s, 5 of the 7 races with victories. It has been a dominating stretch where he's won at a variety of different types of tracks. Can anyone stop the momentum of the Pick 19 machine? That's tough to tell, especially with how much of a distance he's built up entering the very difficult short track in Phoenix.
And to be more specific, 5 victories, 2 second-place finishes. Only once has he been passed on track for the win. The other time he finished in second was when he made a mistake and Adam Blocker pounced on that to finish on top on the streets of Long Beach. It's a fascinating ride. We'll head to the month of June as we get set for our Triple Crown with a trip to the land of the rising sun. 2 weeks from now, cannot wait for that race at Suzuka. That is going to be a fascinating race, and we'll close off the first half of this season with a trip to the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park where we saw chaos in 2021. Let's run you down though through the butt kicker drivers standings, because Phil Kraus still leads, but with Alexander Van de Sande's victory, it's come down oh so slightly. The reality is, when you look at this though, it's not necessarily Kraus's domination that stands out. Maybe not even Adam Blocker's struggles in 2022, excuse me. It's Caleb Bensie's run through the first 7 races of this championship to sit in 4th position, Justin.
It's been an intriguing fight at the top of the standings, absolutely. And very quietly, I will have to say, Arjuna, entering tonight, Jason Brophy has repped his way up the standings despite just the 3 top 5s and top 10s of the season. And that's also despite the fact he's had 3 straight races outside the top 10. Yet, despite that, some of his fellow competitors have slipped back. Even his own teammates have had some struggles at times, like Connor Harrington we've seen. But drivers like Adam Blocker have been an absolute shock. Yes, the tough part has been for him having to race in a variety of different environments in terms of his situation setup-wise. However, he is somebody that had that last year and performed at a different level than we've seen this year, where he started to have a little bit of a decline in terms of that performance compared to what we've seen in the past.
Sometimes your luck just runs out, and in the throes of the month of May, Adam Blocker is at least today racing at home. Last year at this race, he was racing from Carrie Bettenhauser's rig. Let's see if the comfort will play off for him as we're looking at these driver standings. Of course, you see 3 private label Team Hype drivers, 3 Powerslide Adrenaline drivers inside of the top 10 in the points, and therefore those are the 2 dominant forces. Watch out behind though. Ascari Autosport closing on Madworks Motorsports, trying to build some momentum. Powerslide Ignition losing some momentum, and Robert Malechka missing today's race will not score points for the team that comes into this one 5th in the HyperX team standings. We've seen how the driver standings look. Let's look at these rookie standings presented by Buttkicker, and of course, with Phil Kraus, Van de Sande, and Bensie inside of the top 4 in the driver standings, the same holds true here as they occupy the first 3 spots. Still waiting though for a spark from Adriano Pinheiro. Pole position for the opening 2 races, lost out in the race itself. However, we know the pace from the Brazilian is there, and look at Alexis Newsom up in 5th, and we were really shocked last time, JP, the performance that Newsom has found on the road courses.
Yeah, at the road course at Watkins Glen, Newsom, remember, was amongst those battling towards the front. Did finish in 11th at the end of the checker flag, but that improvement has been there to be able to be more well-rounded, not just on the ovals and the speedways, from a background as the Speedway Series champion, but also when it comes to battling the tight confines of a road course with the sweeping turns you have to battle with, while making sure to stay on the racetrack compared to the debut she had at Silverstone last year. And it's been fun to see her rise once again in this campaign. Robert Malechka III backing up his experience as well from that Speedway Series. Some of the drivers from that class still shining stars in the rookie class this season for IndyCar.
take a look at our Gomez Sim Industry Series details. It's Series 10 of the Lionheart IndyCar Series in Year 9 of the Lionheart Racing Series. We're all racing the Dallara IRA team with a common shared fixed setup. Built by RaceSpot's own Andrew Kinsella, except not for today. We'll talk more about that in a couple of moments' time. But the in-car tools are adjustable. Front and rear anti-roll bar as well as the weight jacker to dial in the performance through the course of the 200 laps on the board here today. Cash and prizes have jumped from just over $7,000 in 2021 to over $10,000 for 2022. The champion will win a Gomez Sim Industries Formula Pro Elite rim as well as the Next Level Racing GT Track cockpit as we head towards the second of our Triple Crown races late in the month of June. Of course, everyone's chasing Adam Blocker and the private label Team Hype. One of them on top, one of them very much on the back foot. Let's talk then about our MOZA Racing event details as the IndyCar Series heads to the desert for the 9th time in history. The only time that the Phoenix Raceway, as it's known now, has not been on the schedule was in the inaugural season of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, but in the history since then, we've seen only one repeat winner. Many new names might rise to the fold here today. Adam Blocker has taken pole 3 times in a row, only has one victory to show for it, and interestingly, only 3 times has a winner started outside of the top 6. The closest margin of victory is the 17th closest in series history, just under 0.04 of a second back in season 3, while 12 months after that, we saw 12 cautions, the most here in the desert. They're all trying to defeat Jason Galvin. It's a quasi-home race for Galvin. We know he wants to win here again, but JP, this is going to be a difficult one to come out on top in.
Absolutely. This is a racetrack where, when you mention those victories, 7 different winners in 8 past events over this track. But it's also a different layout compared to the past because in previous editions, you had a much more wide-open dogleg, a different starting line position. And in turn, the new Phoenix changes a lot. Yes, there's the oval close for tonight's format. However, a lot of notes drivers have to make sure they know entering tonight. Where is the blue cone line? When is the merge line to come out of the pit lane if we get green flag stops? Those are some of the major keys for tonight. Also, the start and finish line is talked about moving from what is now the backstretch to the run coming out of new turn 4 and old turns 1 and 2 with slightly different adjustments to the bankings and the grip levels in turn for both ends of the racetrack. And as a result, a lot of differences could come into play, but there is one consistency and maintained point coming in from the drivers. It's hard to pass here still.
I apologize in advance. I'm going to mix up turns 1 and 2 and turns 3 and 4 more times than I cared to count. The pit road entry has not changed. It is on the exit of what is turn 2. Pit road exit merges off of the exit of turn 4. That's going to be confusing. It's something that we're going to have to deal with today, JP. But we talk about the difficulty in passing, and when it comes to difficulty in passing, you know what becomes more important? Qualifying. And we're just about to get underway for Go Fast time.
Track position has been critical in the past here. Staying clean when you get to the point of traffic has been just as big as well. Hence why it's so difficult to win, even with some of that starting position. But keep in mind, we've seen the leader with clean air many times pull off by a few seconds, then they reach the traffic. That lead evaporates quickly when you get into somebody's wake here.
So 5 minutes on the board. Drivers will have the track to themselves as they build up the speed. They get ready for qualifying in a race where we are expecting it to be very difficult, especially during qualifying. Let's quickly talk to you about the track conditions. It's just under 30 degrees Celsius, both in the air as well as on the track. We are in the night, in the throes of the night. Racing past 9 p.m. onwards. It's not going to get any warmer on iRacing Day, but I look at that humidity, JP. That is what stands out to me.
Yeah, that humidity just 15%. It is very dry out here for today's action. So, in theory, when you think about it, the higher the humidity, the more moisture in the air, which usually sees a high variety of track temperature differences on the sim. Much more drier in those conditions, much less moisture in said air, and it should be fun. Look at the bright side. It could be the real world temperature at 100 degrees Fahrenheit today.
Yeah, No thank you. I'm glad I'm not in a sweltering commentary box, that's for sure. Here is the driver that we've been singing the praises of in our butt kicker pre-race show as AJ Musselman jumps to the top with a 19.272. Matt Taylor immediately bests him, but it's Caleb Bency that works his way to the line. Lap 2 seems to be the faster lap, and Caleb Bency will jump up to within the top 5 provisionally, but we've still got almost 20 drivers yet to lay down a lap time. Remember, Adam Blocker 3 in a row here at Phoenix on pole position. He's got to try and do that again, because if he lets Phil Krause run to the front of the field, that's more points that swing the way of the Wisconsin native.
And you know what? That time at the top of the board just destroyed the qualifying record for the series here by 0.3 of a second.
My
that
word.
stood since season 6. And there's a chance with some of the drivers on track that could still get broken.
We watch the Canadian Brian Carey wind his way up as he works his way into the top 4. Mitchell Riggs, 2,000th off the pole as Jay Brandt will go up into 3rd. Carey across the line, a 19.155. It's only good enough for 11th spot, but one man that we're all expecting big things from here is Alexander Van der Sant, coming off a 2nd place finish in the iRacing Fixed Indianapolis 500, as well as that victory 7 days ago. He's a man on a mission. He's a man with momentum.
And he's been quick at the track, so you have to have strategy out. Remember the past when it comes to plotting things out. It's going to be critical, though, he stays towards the front as we discuss the major keys. A major shaker in that is, it's a different type of tempo. Needs to pick up 0.3 to be able to get the pole the second time around.
Now, we've seen plenty of drivers find all sorts of time on lap 2, so if Van der Sant's only a 1/4 of a second off the pace, give or take, this might be a very fast lap. Look at the steering angle through the back straightaway as Pinheiro goes even faster, 0.5 quicker than Taylor, and Alexander Van der Sant will jump up to 2nd. The Brazilians found some pace again.
Pinheiro has been a qualifying king, to say the very least, this season. Want to run for the number 56 again? But a lot of eyes on Adam Blocker again. He started on the pole several times here. Already looking a little bit dicey on these corner exit speeds at nearly 200 miles an hour. The least amount of speed through this exit, 184.
Remember that the short tire has changed significantly from where it was 12 months ago, so that's going to be a factor to consider as well. Blocker only about less than 0.2 off as he works his way in towards turn 3 for the final time. Jason Brophy, 100th off the pole, he jumps to 2nd. Josh Chin into 4th, but Adam Blocker to the line. Not good enough for pole position. It's good enough to start inside of the front 2 rows of the grid. Adam Blocker's streak of pole positions comes to a close.
And Adam Blocker still with good track position, give him credit. Remember, Newsom's been good in qualifying too in the past. Had some good experience in terms of speed last time. He raced here in the Speedway Series chassis. Last year in the Speedway Series, but a different car. You mentioned different tires. This will be tight for the timing. This is the only chance she's got coming at a 4 as she hit the wall.
Now, where is Phil Krause? Phil Krause is not going to put a lap time on the board. He doesn't have a penalty to serve. Phil Krause will start from the tail end of the field at a track where we know it's difficult to pass at. Well, Krause's train has got a long way to go to stop off in victory lane. Newsom comes to the line, a little bit tidier through turn 4. Now is that pole position? Alexis Newsom at the death goes to the top.
Right at the edge of the qualifying session. What a run for Alexis Newsom to set the series record for the pole at Phoenix.
Incredible stuff in qualifying. The times just fell and fell, but it's Alexis Newsom with her 3rd pole position that will line up from the start of the field for the MOZA Racing Phoenix 200. The time for talk is done. It's time to go racing in the desert, and let's take a look at our butt kicker starting grid, because Alexis Newsom will be on pole position with Adriano Pinheiro 200th off the pace in the 56 machine. Jason Brophy and Adam Blocker will share row 2 while Connor Harrington jumps up into the top 5. Alexander Van der Sant rounds out the front 3 rows, 0.5 of a second splitting the front 6 machines. Josh Chin in 7th with Matt Taylor alongside him. Mitchell Riggs and James Brandt complete the top 10. Andrew Marquez and Chris Fowler will share row 6, while rolling from 13th position will be Lionel Calisto in the 97, Michael O'Brien alongside him. Ron Hacker, Brian Beard 15th and 16th, while Stefan Larkep and Brian Carey share row 9. To round out the top 20, it's Adam Fraser and Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Caleb Benzie, well, a struggling qualifying. The 29 has some work to do from 21st, while Matt Houston lines up alongside his teammate in 22nd. Tony Schowen and Chris Lanini, 23rd and 24th. New paints for the Graphics LPM team that we'll talk more about. Tyler Graf and defending race winner Jason Galvin right behind them. Alex Guyon and Barrett Rolfe, 27th and 28th, as the qualifying struggles continue for Rolfe. Paul Jenkins, Joe Branch share row 15. AJ Musselman and Andrew Kinsella, 31st and 32nd. We'll talk about Kinsella's efforts to get back on the grid here today after some technical failures. Aaron Morgan, Ryan Otis, 33rd and 34th. Bradley Sexton and Kite Bommersbach are two final cars to set lap times on the board. Phil Krause, Mike Grigney, and Dustin Wardlow round out the 39 cars that are ready to rumble. We always see big Griggs here at Phoenix, but this is not the biggest. The most is the 42 cars that we had back in Season 6 when, oh yeah, we did have 11 cautions on the night. So the cars are rolling and we're ready to get underway. But as always, we've got featured onboard cameras to work you through here today. Let's start with the pole position sitter and the Next Level Racing onboard camera. Take your racing to the next level. Visit nextlevelracing.com.
Then I carry the butt kicker on board, Jay Brandt, in the number 15 machine. And racing is better with butt kicker. Visit buttkicker.com.
And Alex Guyon carries the HyperX on board. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to play. So almost ready to get underway, JP. Quick prediction here, who comes out on top?
It's tough to predict here, but I'm having a feeling someone like Matt Taylor might be able to power through some of the traffic tonight. My eyes are on the 8.
Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the MOZA Racing Phoenix 200. Alexis Newsom has set a new track record for qualifying, and we're underway for 200 laps in the desert. It's a great start from Newsom, a slow start from Pinheiro, as already Jason Brophy looks to the inside as they dive their way into turn 2. Harrington looks aggressive, but the outside line will give momentum to Alexander Van der Sat. They're fighting for third on back.
That top line, keep in mind through 1 and 2, expect that grip to be there to be able to power around on the corner exit. If you're able to pitch that driver below you on down, a version of that has been seen along the stunt cars here at Phoenix. We're seeing that exemplified and amplified with these cars. Contact teammates.
Looks like a little bit of contact there with Brophy and Harrington. You also see we're racing an aero configuration more familiar to those who are used to watching road racing here in the IndyCar competitions, but it's high downforce. It will help the cars with the immense speed that we're going to see. Also, it's an insane amount of heat that's built into the tires. We do have to watch out for significant tire fall off through the run. Battle on the edge of the top 10 sees Matt Taylor in front of Chris Fowler and James Brandt as they battle for the final spot inside the top 10. A nice and tidy start though, JP. They start to get single filed out.
This is usually a trend when it comes to this track. It's difficult to go side by side here. It's difficult to build up a run here. Hence the importance of the track conditions being a part of that, but more so being able to get yourself sorted to get some clean air around the front end of your front wing ring here today. Lap traffic will be critical throughout the night.
Phil Krause is up to 35th position. No end-of-line penalties to talk to you about today because Robert Malechka, the only driver in the field that had one due to contact with Chris Lanini, is in Nashville today, so not racing in this MOZA Racing Phoenix 200. Barrett Rolfe alongside with Matt Houston, who has not enjoyed a good start. That 66 machinist. Barrett Rolfe's 33. That's up 3 already. Trying to get that move done on Houston, and now maybe around the outside as well. Alex Guyon wants to join the party. Lanini will get back into line. Plenty of fighting at the back of the field. Not so much at the front, where Alexis Newsom leads by almost 0.7 of a second.
Similar trends to what we've seen last year, Arjuna, when it came to this chassis, and a majority of the races, in fact, in Lionheart at Phoenix, from the green flag off starts and restarts. All right, we'll see that lead likely extend a bit around that 1 to 2 second mark, or we see the traffic start to shrink that gap out. Keep in mind, a lot of the drivers will have some tough hills to climb because they didn't get a qualifying time in. For some, We're among the very few who shattered the previous qualifying record. About 20 drivers passed that record tonight.
I mentioned it's a new short track tire compared to the last time we went racing here, but you have to also think that we've added the aero screen over the almost 4 years now that this IR18 has been in the sim. As Van der Sande looks down low, I think you want to be on the outside trying to get the momentum and get these passes done, but Van der Sande searching for some clean air on the nose. It's hounding Pinheiro for the final step of the podium. Adam Blocker running away in that battle for second.
And this is the same type of case we see in stock cars, exemplified and amplified once more when it comes to our IR18 here at Phoenix. It's a rhythm track that takes several laps to set up a pass, and it's very difficult to get the move done. You mentioned trying to use the top line to get momentum, for example. It's an art form where you have to be able to use that banking out of turn 4, what is currently 4 now, to be able to build up enough speed by the time you get to 1 and 2 to get to the outside of your competitor by corner apex. And we've seen the troubles already for Van der Sande to do that. Going to be difficult to try and make the move on the bottom here tonight because of how good that top line can be.
It was a nicely set up dive to the inside of turn 1, but unfortunately, or rather, I said I was going to mix them up. I've already done it. To the inside of turn 3 because he got the outside, or rather the momentum through turn 2. Oh, it's difficult. It's very difficult. I wish that when it came to ovals, they didn't mix up things like they do so much. Brian Carey up 1 position, fighting with Brian Beard in that yellow-black machine. Stefan Larkamp just behind them. The Alcantech NHR Esports team not enjoying a good run at at Watkins Glen. They've fallen back very slightly in our HyperX team standings. Big losers on the start include Chris Lanini, down 7 positions from where he qualified. AJ Musselman as well in that 54. The only other factory-backed machine in the field is down to 36, -5 from where he started. Only a couple of cars making significant headway, and Aaron Morgan being one of them. The number 24 up 5 positions into 28.
Really the biggest mover in the field. A couple are tied for 4th. Jason Galvin in 22nd up 4. Bill Kraus, who hit the wall in qualifying, invalidating both his laps because he hit at the start and finish line, also up 4. What a good charge, though, for Morgan. We know is also very quick when you give him a chance to be able to breathe. Problem is, he's going offset 4 wide.
That was Alex Guyon that he got very, very close to as they dive down into turn 3 now. See, I told you I'm going to get myself confused, stumbling over my own words. Morgan's pinch down low might open the door for Joe Branch again on through as to the inside of turn 2. He'll sling maybe a slide job, attempted slide job, momentum not on his side. There's the run from Joe Branch.
And that's the difficult part. If you can't fully clear on by the person right behind you, guess what? You don't get the move done, you're up for grabs from the next car in line to try the move to take away your outside line. That's what Branch nearly was able to do, and how close it got was why we've seen how important it is you don't lose that line along the top of the entry.
I really feel like this is the sort of race where it's about being patient and moving yourself into the right place at the right time. Very similar to a stock car super speedway race, especially given the type of speed that we're seeing and the amount of time that you have to make good decisions. It's easier said than done. Aaron Morgan will dispose of Alex Guyon as they round themselves to the start-finish line to complete lap 18 of their race. The leader has going to start to get worried, though. Lap traffic not far away from being a factor. We're talking of lap times under 20 seconds. The 39th and final car in this queue, 14 seconds off the lead.
And real quickly, that will be becoming a major bottleneck for Newsom and Adam Blocker, who have pulled away from the rest of the pack by almost 2 full seconds. Once those two reach the leaders, it's game on for the fight for the race lead. But that's also where trouble usually becomes afoot because of how crazy it usually gets cutting through the traffic, and also how difficult it is to pass those cars to give you some buffer cars.
Van der Sande has worked his way past Pinheiro and now trying to close on Blocker. As we look at that battle, Pinheiro sees Brophy go down low, and Pinheiro will try and fight it around the outside, but Brophy has the momentum in the Grello machine.
You can't go below that yellow line. Keep in mind, with this track configuration, they did keep the ability to close the dogleg, albeit without the cones to be able to run through. If you do end up cutting it, you just have a yellow line instead as your barrier. But either way, you cannot go below that yellow line, or else you essentially give yourself a track cutting penalty from the sim.
Might be 2 private label Team Hype machines choo-chooing their way on through. Pinheiro very high in the groove as they enter into turn 2, and Joshua Chin will be the next car in line to try and eye up a move on the Brazilian. It's another race though where Pinheiro's been quick in qualifying, struggles in the race itself.
And the amount of fighting has already cost them nearly 2, in fact fully 2 seconds over the 96. They need to be quick if they want to keep up with the rest of the pack. Passing here is difficult. It can be a gamble if you don't time up when you need to pass, and we've seen already that with Van de Sande breaking the draft of Brophy and Harrington with that fight with Pinheiro.
Of course, this track got that reconfiguration in the real world. We saw some championship action coming to the line in the NASCAR Championship weekend at the end of 2021. Some controversy as well. I guess it delivered in that way, but we'll talk more about restarts if we get that caution. You saw how long it took for the drivers to get underway once the pace car peeled off on the exit of this corner here, on the exit of turn 2. There's a dedicated restart zone, which is the Geico banners basically on the right side through turns 3, through turns 4. Drivers have been instructed. There you see that on the inside, but it's also on the outside. Drivers have been instructed as to the correct ways to restart this race. We'll see if that proves to be a major factor here. Checking back in with this gaggle of cars, 26th on Matt Houston, still under fire from Aaron Morgan. Joe Branch looking down low on Alex Guyon, almost down to the apron.
A little bit too low though, and that's a line that somewhat works in a stock car still, to be able to use a bit of the apron, a long run pace. Not so much when it comes to a Dallara IR18. You're likely snapping it around because there's a slight banking difference between the corner above that yellow line and below it going down to the apron. It's not like you see in many different stock car starts where you go 7 wide to the inside wall here at this track.
On board with Andrew Kinsella, we talked about... Oh, caution's out for the first time today, and it involves Mike Rigney, who was the final car in line. Slow the tempo down, working lap 29 of this race. Rigney already back to pit road. Let's see if we can dial up the RaceSpotTV replay machine. I get the feeling that AJ Musselman was involved as well.
Yeah, and this looks a little bit weird. I mean, there may have been something involved in the air, because this is one-time race winner at the track, Dustin Wardlow. Side by side, he is battling at the time with Musselman, and then the car just magically hooks a bit to the right. It doesn't look like a natural one. Rigney is the one who's right in the back of it and gets squished into the wall.
Let's get a look on board with the double zero machine. So you see here, Wardlow maybe, yeah, there's a hook there which isn't indicative of what was going on. I'm now very curious if any drivers will elect to try something different on the strategy. There were the leaders already working their way through, so you could see how close it was for them. Couple of cars have stayed out, but the vast majority will be working their way onto pit road. I think many cars just trying to get a bonus point for leading a lap because we're already halfway through the fuel run. Marquez, Larkamp, Graf, Houston, and Wardlow, those staying out. The rest of the cars down to pit road.
Quite really intriguing. The 9 car elects to stay out there after the caution, but it's understandable to take the pit stop now because it's 200 laps. It's a racetrack where you won't lose not 1 lap, not 2 laps, possibly 3 laps with the speeds we're carrying here tonight.
So, Michael O'Brien is dropping down. Now, I wonder if he's got a penalty for some reason on pit row. That would be the most logical explanation. He's down in 30 seconds. In fact, no, he's jumped back to pit road. What has happened to Michael O'Brien? Maybe some drama for him working his way off a pit exit. Let's take a look if we can, because I'm sure this is not going to be the nicest scene. So here he goes. You see waiting to get to the blue cones. Now, is that a technical issue? Because he just pulls across.
I am confused. It might be partly with the rules for the pit lane, possibly with how he ran to the lane. He didn't really go to the right to be once he got single file even for the run. Then it just seems like he pulls off. Did try to type, I believe, something, and it seems like something is amiss in the 45 cam.
See if we can get word from Michael O'Brien. Wait and see if these cars come down to pit lane. But the lights are still on the pace car, so if they're going to do it, they'd have to do it now. Remember, we're talking about a 49 to 52 lap fuel window. The fact that these cars aren't coming down indicates to me they think we're in. What do we say? Well, cautions breed cautions. I think those cars are very much hoping to see more trouble out on the track.
That's exactly why you're staying out here. You're hoping you get more cautions to justify this. Keep in mind, they would have to pit in about 20 or so laps based on the numbers projected entering tonight, about 50 laps a run. So essentially, you're hoping that there's a bit of a stack up behind. The interesting thing will be how big is there going to be in terms of foul-off differences coming up here. Because there is expected to be some, but it's, of course, Dallara IR18s at Phoenix. We haven't seen massive drop-offs in the pace tonight yet.
So the first caution of the day. Now, the fewest cautions that we've had, 6, and that has been over the past 2 races here. The 4 races before that, all double-digit cautions as the pace car will pull off. Remember, we don't go racing until we get to the restart zone, so Andrew Marquez will pace. Looks like Alexander Van der Sande has jumped in front of Adam Blocker on pit road, so a bit of a swap around there. Might help out the likes of Pinheiro, struggling on the long run. 5 cars on worn tires, an indication to us as to if you have a caution at the end of the race. How do you play it out? Marquez very late to jump on the power, but we're back underway in the MOZA Racing Phoenix 200.
And already Adam Blocker looking to poke. Van der Sande having to play massive defense with Brophy also looking hungry. Already that train of traffic of those who stayed out under attack from Newsom, who can't find a way around yet.
Here comes Blocker down low as they dive into turn 3. He's got to be careful because Brophy's behind and lurking in the rearview mirrors. Harrington will try and freight train Blocker as well. Remember, Blocker's got some history at this track and wants to try to hold on to it. Brophy's up into the wall. We're staying green for the time being, but surely the caution not far away. There it goes. Caution for the second time, and cautions breed cautions. It's Jason Brophy that loses out.
And I'm not surprised there was hard side-by-side fight with Blocker into the corner. And quite simply, you make any sort of contact, air-assisted or not, you're slamming hard into the safer barrier here because you don't have much time to react. And this is the type of racetrack where you make a little bit of contact, your car sheds a lot of body parts around the racetrack.
It's a somewhat home race for Jason Brophy, so I'm sure he's going to be quite frustrated with that one, but we'll get a look in a moment if we can. Brophy been very busy the past couple of weeks. Yesterday, the driver that he crew chiefs for in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series entered victory lane on a fuel-safe strategy. Joe Branch, Ryan Otis, Kinsella, and a number of others coming to pit row. Let's grab a look at the side-by-side. Let's get a look at what happens here. So Blocker jinks up and then doesn't turn in, and I think Brophy's just expecting a little bit more out of Adam Blocker, and let's see if we can ride on board with Connor Harrington.
Gonna have a good example of this. You see right there, quick response from Harrington. See this one more time. Just a little bit close in terms of that, having maybe half a second to respond. If Brophy bounces a little more aggressively back towards the path of Harrington, it's game over for 2 of the private label team hype cars.
See if we can get one more look at this one, and we'll watch it all the way out of turn 4. And maybe try and jump up above to see if we can get a better look at what goes on here. So, on the entry to the corner. Now, again, there was a jink from Blocker initially. But we're racing at such high speeds, JP, that it's very hard to understand what's going on, and one wrong move, well, it can lead to a car in the wall.
Yeah, there's a lot that comes to mind, to say the least, especially if you're trying to sort those types of speeds out in terms of where they will be positionally wise, and that you can take that in a multiple different type of paths. But the major thing now is, for those still on track here, how do you strategize the rest of the way here? We had a few drivers top off, such as Joe Branch and company. But now, how does this fare out? Do we get to, say, lap 50, and then see a bunch of people start to split the strategy there? Because that's essentially the 2 pit stop to go mark in terms of your strategy calls for the rest of the night.
So there's plenty of intrigue when it comes to the strategy on fuel windows. Of course, the 5 that haven't pitted will continue to try and stay out there as long as they can. And we didn't see that worn tires were a major factor.
Yeah, the dirty air, absolutely a huge factor. It seems Newsom tried to poke around the outside of drivers like Wardlow and Houston, just couldn't make it fully stick here. So this is the type of battling now where, how do you try and play this? Can a driver behind you take advantage of your situation with the aero wash? Can they overpower the aero wash in the first place? There's a lot that can be happening here, and keep in mind, the more cautions you have, the more pace laps, obviously, but this is a longer trending caution track, where it's usually 4 to 5 laps per caution on average at Phoenix.
And it was trouble at the front, or relatively towards the front, so it wasn't as though it was in the mid-pack. It was very much those at the front fighting hard and looking for track position, with fall-off being precious in terms of how much the tires would go off. Remember, Marquez held them for a long time in the restart zone, and it was a curious call to me, JP. I would have thought you want to get on the power as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's going to be the tough thing, is trying to time it out more so. But I think more so, keep in mind, first of all, the restart zone box is in there because, well, pace car's off, you can technically go in the official side. But 2, you have a decent amount of variance here to if you want to go at the edge of the zone or right now.
Back underway for the MOZA Racing Phoenix 200. It's a good start from Marquez. Let's turn up the engines. Again, the top 5 split themselves up single file, but it's again the battle with those on fresher rubber as the power slide duo side by side. Van der Sant to the inside of blocker. Harrington might try and get past Van der Sant.
Oh, and Harrington nearly put himself on the wall trying to get up there. He knew how important it was to get side by side, just couldn't get there without shutting his front wing off.
Tidies itself up for now, a bit of side-by-side inside of the top 15. Mitchell Riggs sees Lionel Kalisto and Chris Fowler duking it about amongst one another. Brian Carey in the fold as well. Still waiting, though, for Alexis Newsom to try and make a move on Dustin Wardlow at the front of this field. The car's on worn tires, holding on very nicely.
Keep in mind they still at the pit soon at all. Give or take with the green flag laps turn, maybe 18 laps from now at the most. Those drivers have a lot to consider. Keep in mind the strategy for those who would lead once they have to duck down if this goes green to that point. Blocker and Newsom are keeping busy in their draft.
There's the battle, though, up front. Newsom now to the outside of Dustin Wardlow, the Candyman. That's where she will want to be to try and get the arc off of the corner, but gets plenty of dirty air from Matt Houston just in front of her. Will allow Dustin Wardlow to hold on for now as we look as well as the battle for 14th, but it's further behind where it's getting more interesting. Brian Carey under fire as he's gotten past Mitchell Riggs and looking to join the party. Chris Fowler in the 20.
Fowler trying to squeeze his way to the outside as well for the safer barrier. Very tight action amongst them. Newsom, contact with Wardlow.
And that might just lead to another caution, and Newsom is up and over. Pole position is out of the race. Cautions breed cautions. We're under yellow for the 3rd time today.
Both cars, mandatory repairs. Oh boy, this gets wild for the rest of the way down.
Now, we'll have to get a look at it. We don't want to jump to a conclusion here, but you'd have to assume that Wardlow's defending hard. He knows how important it is to maintain the track position. Everyone else trying to get on pass, and crucially now, it will open the opportunity for a couple of cars to dive on in, but there's a split call. You see Blocker and Harrington following those machines in because, well, they think it's a fuel-safe race. Alexander Van der Sant will stay out from here. Now, which of the strategies is right, we'll have to wait and see. Let's look backwards, though. Let's see if we can pick up what happens to Alexis Newsom. So, you can see that Matt Houston is a bit of a roadblock right now, and she comes off, and it's the same little bit of air that we talked about earlier. Don't think you can pin any blame on either of those machines. The iRacing gods not smiling on those 2 cars.
It's exactly the same scenario. The difference is Newsom had a little bit of a bobble from the outside. And that is just heartbreaking if you're Newsom. Was under that push forward, that bobble right there.
And then up and over she goes.
And you can see the potential of the pass, and the air thought that there was a bigger bobble. That's the best way to phrase it right now.
Here's a look on board with Josh Chin, who had to go through the smoke. You can see Newsom's car tumbling end over end. Houston, Steven, that's not Houston. That would be, I think, Jane Brandt also getting through as well, but that is going to be frustrating for Newsom.
Extremely frustrating, and Tower Graphs had to come in. Something's happened to Lorcamp in this situation as well, where Lorcamp's had to pull down. There's a lot of discussion amongst all this, and keep in mind, not to add salt to everything, Newsom had a warning for the previous pit exit for exceeding the number of stalls before entering the acceleration-deceleration lane, which was something we've seen a bit of with the 45 car before O'Brien stopped to the side of the track.
So, within 50 laps, we've already seen 3 cautions so far today. Wardlow did get mixed up in the initial caution, which saw Musselman and Rigney get taken out. Brophy and Blocker then about 6 laps after that. 10 lap splits, cautions 2 and 3, which you'll see Alexis Newsom as well as Dustin Wardlow out of this race. So a split strategy sees 17 cars not dive down to pit road. Brian Carey has managed to leapfrog his way up into a net second down on the track. In terms of those who have pitted, he gets in front of Connor Harrington. That is a vital strategy call for the Canadian. Somewhat struggled in qualifying, was also struggling to work his way up through the field.
And sometimes when it comes to a track like this, you need to try something different to get yourself in a conversation, Mark, to battle for the race lead. And that's what a lot of drivers have just done here. And the tough thing is for some of the drivers, such as Joe Branch and Andrew Kinsella even, who topped off the previous caution, they might have been able to pick up a few more spots. If they didn't have that, you never know, though, what could happen with the Rolodex of different strategies and which card you end up picking out. Especially if you're basically hoping that I find the right connection. What is it going to be? Close your eyes and hope you get the right card.
So top 5 will be Van der Sant, Chin, Pinheiro, Brandt, and Taylor. Most of those drivers started outside of the top 5. They have taken the strategy call. Looks like we do already have 7 cars not on the lead lap of the 39 that took to the green. Van der Sant's going to jump a little bit earlier than we saw from Marquez the last couple of restarts. It's a nice jump from him. Lionel Kalisto going down low, very early, going aggressive on Matt Taylor.
A lot of heavy fighting amongst this pack already to try and find a clean air pocket, get a run. This is difficult, though, already. Taylor Monsto is starting to wash up a bit with this fight with Kalisto.
Already 3/10 clear is Van der Sant. If it is a fuel-save race, there's not many drivers other than Van der Sant that you'd want to see in that position to try and convert on a gamble to see how it goes. 2 different strategies, and the beauty of racing is with a quarter of the race done, 3 quarters left to go, in 150 laps time, we'll know which one was the right gamble, which driver laid the chips on the line and came out on top. Adam Blocker has now got to work on a teammate in the form of Andrew Kinsella. Only a 4-second pit stop for Adam Blocker. He did not take tires, only took fuel to guarantee track position.
I don't blame him. The tires, we didn't turn too many laps on those. And now it's the matter of seeing what happens. The tough thing will be trying to get some positions ahead on those who stayed out here. Kinsella's not even making it easy for him as well amongst all this. And some of the drivers get a little bit squirrely off these exits.
It is plenty feisty. Behind Fowler is Michael O'Brien, who's back out on track, ducking and diving down low. Looks like one of the Ascari Autosport machines trying to have a battle. There's so much going on right now. Almost 3 wide as they cut through on the dogleg. Joe Branch will look down low on Alex Guyon. A car almost up into the wall. My, oh my, this is feisty. Jason Galvin gets past Chris Fowler.
And you see why attrition is common when it comes to this racetrack. And there it goes.
That, I think, is Alex Guyon getting mixed up with Aaron Morgan, and we stop it once again. Now, a couple of those incidents, well, very much were the wrath of the iRacing god. That just looks like over-aggressiveness in the heat of battle.
Yeah, Guyon much deeper into the corner entry, looked like, and the tough thing is, when you have a grouping of cars, you can't necessarily brake like you normally can. You might have to back up the corner. Morgan did that. Guyon, who had a bit more separation, didn't necessarily back it up as much as he needed to.
Yeah, watch this. That's just, well, optimistic's the nice word for it. You can think of many ones that are worse, but Guyon has been somewhat steady to start off the season. We'll see the caution fly for the 4th time today. If we continue with this trend, we are by far looking at the race with the most cautions in Lionheart IndyCar history here at Phoenix.
The funny thing is, I think a few of the drivers, if I read right, were having a plus and minus guess on, or over and under, for how many cautions. Alexander Van der Sant put that at 8.5. Some of the drivers responded by expecting 200. We're trending towards the 200 at the pace we're going.
Yeah, it's suboptimal, to quote our good friend Lewis McClade, but that's the way that racing goes. We had a nice 30-lap green flag run, but since then it has been very, very stop and start. And this really does help those that did not come down to pit lane. But is Van der Sant going to box this time, or is he just trying to save some fuel? He's been on track for 27 laps since the last time he dived onto pit road. But of course, many of those laps would be under caution. He's probably looking at getting towards the halfway marker of the fuel stint. Van der Sant fakes out. He stays on track.
I don't think he was faking out. It's more so shorter distance around. You ride on the apron. You save gas. And think of it this way. You take the long way around the track. It burns a little bit more fuel when you consider it. And this is especially prevalent in some tracks such as, say, Kansas, where it could be a variation of like 5 laps in some cases in some series in terms of fuel burn, running the bottom the whole run to the top the whole run.
So now, what's going on in the driver's minds, JP? What do they need to be thinking about? How do they stay focused when, well, it is a very difficult situation to be in when you're stopping and starting this much? Staying mentally focused can be somewhat draining.
Well, the tough thing's going to be in terms of maintaining the focus is not getting the frustrations building in your system, because when you start getting that red mist, as we call it, or the amount of anger or stress about what's going to happen now, will this continue to maintain X when the trend breaks and we get, say, a long run of 100 laps, and this has happened in many cases on short tracks I've seen, you have drivers who are prepared for it and do really strongly. And those who are expecting cautions to continue, and they lose 25 spots in an entire fuel run. You need to make sure you're the former of that, where you're ready for anything to happen. Because the trends usually on a short track, in some cases on the sim, you see cautions in the early going, long run in the middle, cautions build up towards the end, or long run in the middle to the end.
Let's take a look at something that I know Stefan Larkamp is very frustrated about. This was a couple of cautions ago under the pit stop cycle. So, Larkamp ready to roll. You see Brian Beard into his box now. Pit exit was closed just as Larkamp was rolling off of the exit. He realized very late on, and you'll see him jump onto the anchors. And unfortunately, the car behind doesn't see it in time. Larkamp gets tagged. Drivers do have to watch for that. That will be something that hopefully they've been warned of. As the pace car pulls off, it's Van der Sant in control.
And that was Houston behind, who is still going in 30th. But the major thing to think about in that mark, it's a very long train of cars. You have to wait to the very end, and there were still at least 5 cars side by side passing the blue cone at the time of that pit road closing.
So 4 cautions so far, and we're not even 60 laps into our 200-lap affair, the MOZA Racing Phoenix 200. Flag in hand for Barney the Flagman. Van der Sant again picks up the throttle. We're racing once more in round 8 of the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. A nice jump at the front, plenty of 2-wide action further back.
Especially those wanting to find a way to cut the line. Caleb Bensi, what a cut to the very bottom of the track. One of the few times we've seen the driver right off the launch do 1 and 2, but that line's just not there in 3 and 4 tonight.
3/10 clear as Van der Sant from Chin. Not breaking away just as expediently as we would maybe expect him to. Blocker gets past Kinsella, now gets to work on fellow Powerslide driver Joe Branch. There he goes to the inside. It's going to be fresh tires versus worn rubber, but Blocker not able to get the speed and comes up the track and almost runs up into the path of the 28 in front of them. Barrett Rolfe in front of Chris Fowler. Plenty of fighting going on, 10th on back.
Walker showing a little bit of impatience here and there, but the thing is, those fresher tires are allowing him to cut the corner a little bit better. Just cleared by one of the cars, in fact, with that method on Chris Fowler. That difference in tires, maybe be something to keep in mind if you have only a couple stay out.
There was a close call there with Connor Harrington and Brian Carey as Carey came up the track and cut off the nose of Connor Harrington, but Carey will look down low on Chris Fowler and try and slide up and will get on through on that number 20 machine. Harrington will try and do it through the dog leg. There is the man that usually builds the setup for the Lionheart IndyCar series in the form of Andrew Kinsella, running by himself, at least for now, in 14th position. It's been a difficult week for Kinsella. This past weekend he had slogged his way to qualify for the iRacing Indianapolis 500. Started his attempts and his practice indeed on, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, managed to get a lap time in that was good enough to get him inside of the top 25. 45 minutes before the race got underway, a storm that really wreaked havoc at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park rolled through his area, knocked out the power, fried his computer, got up and running about 30 or 40 minutes before we got underway for this race. He is very short on practice. We thank Henry Bennett, who was a winner in the Lionheart IndyCar series last year, I think to that race at Motegi, building the setup to help out his teammate in the form of Andrew Kinsella. But from the highs of making it to the field to the lows of watching on using mobile data, Andrew Kinsella has had a rough weekend, but running up inside of the top 14, plus 18 from where he started.
Of course, our thoughts are with those affected by the storms in the GTA over the past weekend. 8 people had died in those storms, tens of thousands left without power, flooding seen in the campgrounds at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. It was the same weekend, keep in mind, as the NASCAR 50 Series race there. A lot to consider when it comes to those storms in the GTA region last weekend.
And of course, damage to race cars and racetracks is insignificant compared to the lives of people, but many of those who were out there and spending their hard-earned money at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park had cars damaged, equipment damaged as well, so we hope that we're able to get up and running shortly. This motor racing in that part of the country is very much an institution. We talked earlier as well about the liveries that some of your graphics LPM machines are running. There's Chris Lanini's number 92, of course. Another tragic shooting at an elementary school a day or so ago in debate that seems to be never ending. It's I don't like to get too political, but it's something that every time I see on the news I'm just utterly confused and confuddled as to how we see this happening and more action is not taken. But at the very least, Tyler Graff, Chris Lanini and a couple other graphics LPM machines not running their usual liveries, running liveries in support of what's going on as Chris Fowler gets all sorts of sideways almost into the wall.
And a big save for Fowler absolutely in that situation. And it's always a tough situation to discuss such emotions in such tightly compact racing in particular. But the main thing you have to consider, there has to be a means to an end in this type of a situation when you have the world situation in that mark, is the best way to put it, to put a quick bow on that.
See if we can get a look at what happened then to Chris Fowler, get a better look, I should say, as to what happened here on the entry into what is now turn 3. Again, just a little bit of air. I do believe that would have been the 12 of Adam Frazier who got mixed up there. We'll cycle it back. We'll take a couple more looks at that one. I don't think there's too much Chris Fowler could do, but he's been struggling today, to put it mildly.
He has been, and we'll see with the replay in particular how to back up hard with the air wash, then diamonds it down. There's already a car there, nearly sheds off the front wing of another car, and just barely by inches avoids significant suspension damage. 1 or 2 more inches up towards the wall, we might be talking another caution.
Adam Blocker gets past on Barrett Rolfe. Looks like he did it on the inside of turn 4, so an indication that with the delta in tires that we're now seeing, about 46 laps on the tires for those who did not pit in the last couple of cautions, maybe the groove is starting to swing in the direction of Adam Blocker, who's been on track for just 29 laps, so almost 20 lap delta on the tires as they dive their way into the corner once more. Significant speeds. We've talked about the weather before, we'll talk about it again. 29 degrees on the track. Again, low humidity as we work closer and closer to 10 p.m.
Zipping and zooming around, indeed, those temperatures, mind you, have actually gone up for the track temperature by a couple degrees Fahrenheit and 1 degree centigrade. Partly with the humidity, but partly with the amount of laps turned around the racetrack. When you turn more laps, on the short tracks on iRacing, that track temperature can soar. Take, for example, a half-mile track, you might see the track temperature up 10 degrees Fahrenheit. We're seeing that bump a little bit higher now here at Phoenix.
Blocker fights with Luis Gonzalez Nunez, doesn't get through on the SimRace 24/7 machine. We'll look down low again. Remember, fixed setup that all of these drivers are dealing with, so it's not like one car's better at one end of the speedway, another car better at the other. Maybe there's a bit of difference on the in-car tools, but very much dealing with the same base configuration of these cars. Give a shout out to Josh Chin as well, who is keeping Alexander Van der Sant nice and honest, and they're not far away from catching some lap traffic. Kite Bommersbach is 19 seconds off the lead, so that'll be the first car that Alexander Van der Sant has got to deal with, but then they start to get into the train just 4 seconds further up the road to Bradley Sexton.
Mind you, the pit window is possibly opening within the next 5 laps or so, because these drivers are 51 laps under their stint, so this is kind of a catch-22, where you have to pit soon, there's the risk of losing laps because of a green flag stop at Phoenix, at a track configuration many people might not have experience with, to get to the pit entry with a much longer wall, and very different rules compared to some of the other tracks. This is kind of a eye of the storm kind of scenario coming. All while you have to think, how do I play this with the traffic to make sure I don't lose ground here, to make sure I'm not caught up in the pack.
Philip Kraus gets up in front of Connor Harrington. Significant. Harrington up inside of the top 5 and qualifying. Kraus, well, no lap time on the board. Started all the way down in, 37th or 38th position. Kraus really has done well to put himself in a decent spot. Let's talk then about our MOZA Racing driver profile. It's the winner of this race 12 months ago. It was an emotional one for Jason Galvin, and in his 133 starts, he's got 50 top 10s, 26 top 5s, and 8 victories to speak. No pole positions, but you don't need to go fast in qualifying if you can work your way up through the field. He started his IndyCar Lionheart career season 3 in Homestead. It took just over a year, about a year and a half for him to get his first victory. Jason Galvin, very much a staple of the Lionheart series.
Absolutely is, and especially when it comes to his experience and the amount of starts. For somebody that, on top of things, has plenty of real broadcasting experience to broadcast not only in the sim, or has in the past in various different roles, commentates various different series from App TV, does commentating in the NHRA, also does commentary at the collegiate level for multiple different sports. He's a very busy person, to say the very least, from Bakersfield, California.
He ever needs a backup. You've got 2 people here that would love to work with Jason Galvin. Down to the inside goes Adam Blocker and Luis Gonzalez Nunez. In front of them, I think that's a lapped car in the form of Kite Bommersbach, potentially. We started with 39, we're down to just 31 out there and running. Looks like Paul Jenkins, the most recent retiree. They're 3 wide on the exit of the corner. Joe Braj down low.
That was a little bit tight with his teammate Barrett Rolfe nearly squishing him. And at this point, Kite Bommersbach, to be quite blunt, is being treated like a kite that can't find its way into the air right now, because essentially the pace is different, but also the turtle effect is there where you don't want somebody to hit you.
He's doing 21.5, your leader doing a 19.7. He is off the pace and he's got to be careful, given the speed differences, how quick it is for wrong decisions to be made. Joe Braj down low as Brian Carey will look around the outside. Now Phil Kraus will try and slide up in line, but Branch will get the move, at least be able to get through again, but he goes down very low. Should have maybe run a bit wider to cut the momentum off of Phil Kraus, who's to the outside on the entry to turn 2.
Kraus still has the preferred line for the exit of 2 right there. Just keep him to the inside, stay to the right rear tire, force him to have to back it off, and not be able to come out and wash up and track up for the corner exit. Easy pass for Kraus. Pit calls are underway. Nunez, this time from 11th.
Using the access road, trying to stay out of harm's way, as the 14 machine will slide onto pit road. Look how deep he goes as well, but the commitment cone is very deep. I should say the pit lane line, the speed limit line, very deep compared to where the barrels actually start. So that's the indication of how committed you will have to be on pit lane. Chris Fowler will box as well, already 1 lap down, will fall a couple laps down, and now we're in the danger zone for the likes of Luis Gonzalez and other cars that will be boxing in the next couple of moments. Barrett Rolfe will also be down on pit lane. You lose a lot of time coming down to pit road, 2 full laps, you'll go down.
Majority of the field at this point is probably thinking in their head, please stay green, please stay green, please stay green, please stay green. Because a caution at this mark takes them all out of contention here if they don't get to fully cycling around here at this mark. Keep in mind, Barrett Rolfe, amongst those who are still coming around, has already lost at least a lap, or what he is going to lose 2 laps by the time he gets to the commitment cone. That's a 2.5 lap time loss for pitting here.
It's significant, to put it mildly. Number more cars down. Van der Sat can't extend much further, so it's a crazy time on pit road as Van der Sat, Chin, Taylor, Riggs all committing. You can also see they're running the wider arc, the fast lane on pit lane. They are following the rules laid down from race control. Then they hook a left, they slide into their box, and Van der Sat, nice and tidy, will go up on the jacks as well as the king of chins. Blocker now leads from Andrew Kinsella, who has done a mighty job to continue fuel saving, trying to stay out of the danger zone, but he's down to pit road this time by.
Well, and Kinsella's carrying a lot more speed than some of the others. That was close to avoid the barrier. Keep in mind, Lionel Kalisto, booked for speeding, is amongst those who have picked up penalties this window.
Look at that gap. Adam Blocker is 2 full seconds clear on Brian Carey, Phil Krause, and Joe Branch in this call-on strategy. Joe Branch will come down to pit lane now. And I get the sense that the cars that gambled on staying out have lost out by virtue of how many cautions that we've had, because we're not far away from Blocker, Carey, and company coming down to pit road. They won't have to save as hard as those that have already pitted.
Under the radar amongst this, Krause is kind of approaching the conversation again. We just seen him already throw right with Carey. This could get very intriguing. Also keep in mind, Van der Sat is amongst those 1 lap down currently. For some of these cars, when they peel on down, likely getting the lap back here. That's how big some of the gaps are for some of the cars who are up at the head of the pack.
Getting to the halfway marker of this MOZA Racing Phoenix 200. Adam Blocker working lap 100 with 2.3 seconds in the bag. It's a split strategy call. I think the gamble from the likes of Van der Sat, from Chin, from Houston, from Taylor might not have worked out the way they were expecting. Halfway through, Adam Blocker has got a comfortable lead right now, but I knock on the wood. I remember that Justin Prince, half the race done, we've already seen 4 cautions out.
And plenty of drivers DNFing already. Jenkins, Newsom, Morgan amongst that long list. And there is plenty of action left to go. All while, mind you, a good portion of the field still has to pit soon. Tony Shaw and amongst those on the same strategy as Blocker and company just came down now. So that window for these drivers who are inside the top 10 are right in that prowl right now. All with the difference for most of those drivers, about 6 laps, maybe 8 by the time to peel in.
Connor Harrington will also come down to pit road now. Has he had an issue? Because I saw him not running where I'd expect him to run, so we'll have to wait and see. Plenty of Hornets' nests as well, but mainly with lap traffic, as Adam Blocker will come down to pit road. Nice and comfortable for him. Krause, Carey as well. Krause has already gotten past Brian Carey. He is very much in the equation. He's got a very early box as well by virtue of his disappointing qualifying performance.
And again, that wasn't planned for Krause, and that was the concern with Newsom. Keep in mind, where if Newsom scraped the wall by a couple inches, caution!
And that will change the game. Now, who's left on the lead lap? Who has been trapped 1 lap down? Alexander, Van der Sat, Joshua Chin appear to be safe. The rest of the field in shambles as we get under caution for the 5th time tonight. And I think Jason Galvin is involved.
Yeah, he's falling down the pylon here, and he indeed was involved. It was 2x2 entering turn 4 for him, believe, and the tough thing is, if you hit debris, if you hit a certain air pocket, we've seen how dangerous the air can be tonight.
Bradley Sexton will lead the field, but a car yet to come down pit road. Let's see if we can pick up what happens to Jason Galvin. We pick him up already in pit lane, and now we pick him up in the wall on the exit of turn number 4. This will give us a better indication as we come through turns 2. I mentioned Hornet's Nest. This is looking ultra feisty, and the defending race winner, no mistake of his own, gets slammed up into the wall. I think that was Jay Brandt that got mixed up.
I almost don't know if that was more so the air or more so the fact that that wing from Brandt's car shed off and went right into Galvin's car and then pinned Galvin up right there. There's the wing.
Oh my word.
The air kind of helped, but the wing didn't really help with that shard going right through his chassis.
Couple more looks and we'll go super slow-mo here. So just watch Jason Galvin's left front. It's one of the race first cars down low. Jay Brandt, not much he can do. The wing comes up. It's not the wing. It's that dreaded bubble of air that we've been talking about. Seems to be catching out so many of the drivers here tonight.
Yeah, it has been a night in terms of that. And here's the interesting thing. Who is the race leader at this point?
Van der Sant.
Because possibly, yes, because Bradley Sexton pit, and even though he was still in front of the leader after the stop, he has to stop for the closed lane. Marquez pitted in.
So
every strategy is mixed up like a bit of a, well,
and it's crucial as well that many cars will get back on the leading lap by virtue of where Van der Sant is in comparison to the pace car. From here, everyone is good with one stop. There's no fuel saving anymore. It's all about pedal to the metal and go, 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 go. But from here, how many cars will still be in the mix? I get the sense 23 cars still left on the leading lap.
Yeah, and it all depends on how many waves come around. Currently amongst those having to take that wave, Matt Taylor. That prediction's gone wrong so far. He's at 11th now. Connor Harrington, Caleb Bensi, Kinsella, Ralph, Nunez. He's lucky to be able to hold on to the late lead lap with the wave. Joe Branch amongst those final drivers, and that goes even further with the updated timing. 23 cars able to take the wave, or up to 23 on the lead lap.
I think it's 23. Ron Hacker will be the final of them as Van der Sant will be back to the front. 10 laps further into his stint than Adam Blocker. You know who's got the biggest smile on his face, though? The Kraus train is up to 4th position. The pace car's off. We're ready to get back underway.
It's not a train. It's a house.
No, I'm calling it the Kraus train now. I'm redubbing it. We get the power here in the commentary booth. 5 cautions so far as we work our way into the final cycles of the race. Van der Sant from Blocker, from Chin, from Kraus, from Carey, the top 5. Van der Sant picks up the throttle. We're back underway in Phoenix.
Good launch again for Van der Sant. Nice and clean to be able to try and break through. Keep an eye on Kraus and company, though, trying that top line, getting some air, all while the feistiness continues in the mid-pack.
Josh Chin trying to have a look on Blocker, but Blocker, I think, going to be able to hold on for the time being. Now, the tires for Blocker's car are going to be a little bit cooler than maybe Josh Chin's, and Chin's going to try and sail on down the inside, but we've been talking about how the outside might be the preferred group. It's not going to matter. Chin up to 2nd.
And that major difference right there. If you clear by Apex on the bottom, you can't make it work in the bottom. Usually, it's been difficult to do that, though, tonight. Chin just tapped the better momentum, it seemed, Arjun, to help set that up, partly with that heat in the tires you referred to.
39 cars started, we're down to 30 left running, of which only 23 are on the lead lap. You can see the kerfuffling that we've seen today. You can see the movers and shakers on the left side of your screen. Bradley Sexton's plus 26, Ryan Otis plus 27, but Bill Kraus is plus 34 now. He gets past Adam Blocker as well. I wonder if Blocker is thinking about a strategy call here.
I'm curious what the strategy call would be, because it's a one-stopper no matter how you slice it in theory from this point forward. Almost wonder if he's trying to find a way to stretch it and go the furthest out of the rest of his competitors here with the trends of the race in case there's a caution if we get green flag stops again.
Plenty of fighting at the front, but it really is a mad scramble for 10th on back as Marquez is in front of Taylor, Pinheiro, Riggs. Andrew Kinsella's having trouble. Might have had a bobble coming off of turn number 2.
Kinsella continuing to not have the prettiest of nights. 19th from that bobble. That was partly with him getting wacky loose in 1 and 2. Meanwhile, second things out, some of the blue and white machines looking to pull away. There's Brian Beer behind a Carey.
Carey, another one of those drivers who's worked his way up through the field, not to the same degree as the likes of Kraus. Here's Mitchell Riggs holding off Matt Taylor. Connor Harrington, quite frustrated after what happened at Watkins Glen. Involved in an incident on lap 1 that saw a caution fly on a road course for the first time in what seems like a long time. Qualified well today, but continuing to struggle when it comes to the overall result.
And remember, Harrington was at a decent clip in terms of consistency with Blocker almost every step of the way last year. This season, not so much. 4 top 5s, 5 top 10s for Harrington. Currently just hanging on to that top 5 in points over Adam Blocker.
A man on a move, on a mission is Phil Kraus. He's just made the move on Joshua Chin. Up to second is the number 19 machine. We saw Van der Sant versus Kraus 1 week ago on the road course. It's part 2 of the battle here on the Phoenix Raceway. Let's get a look at what happened to Andrew Kinsella as he worked his way through turn 2. And my word, what a save that was. Quick hands, quick feet, just watch on board as he's down low, maybe a bit aggressive on the wayjacker. Considered in the amount of steering lock that he put into that car. Kinsella wrangles it into control.
And keep in mind, you're not expecting usually to be that low in corner exit off turn 2, hence why the weight checker may have been shuffled off. He did have a slight bobble that seen him go to that line from the top in turns 1 and 2. That factored in, but look at this. Van der Sant, a bad run out of 2.
Kraus has the opportunity to dive down low and get back to the point of the field. Van der Sant will hold strong around the outside as we ride on board with Adam Blocker side by side into turn 2. Van der Sant a nose in front.
Kraus can't get the slide jump though to be able to clear by the apex. Van der Sant has the preferred line again.
Still side by side. They've been like this for a lap plus as they diamond their way off the final corner. Kraus just a little bit quicker through the apex. Van der Sant builds the momentum up once more. Chin coming under fire from Adam Blocker. Brian Carey closing in. Look how close they've got. We've seen plenty of contact today, but the two at the front have made it work again. Van der Sant holds on. Blocker has a look.
First time today we've seen a smile come from a certain sim. My goodness though, that was side pod to tire contact. That could have been a disaster. But the caution's out.
And we'll slow it down again. Matt Houston gets involved. He was 1 lap down running basically in a battle with Chris Fowler's number 20 Madworks Motorsports machine. And the intensity will drop, if but for a moment. Looks like some contact potentially. Now, who would that be with? Get a better look here. So Houston off the corner.
Graf.
Tyler Graf in the 98. Now we'll get a better look maybe from on board. Was it the iRacing gods? What happens here?
Let the picture say, because this entry to 3 will be pretty substantial.
Now there's a tiny bit of air, but there's a big difference in momentum. The lines are converging, and Tyler Graf does make contact there.
Something's really in the air tonight.
That's one way of putting it.
Yes. There's another way I can put it, but I won't say it.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's just the way the wind blows. It's as simple as that. Sometimes you just get unlucky. Sometimes the iRacing gods do not want to smile on you. We see a number of cars onto pit lane. Matt Taylor, Connor Harrington amongst them. Caleb Benzie, Tony Showen, the other cars on the lead lap electing to box. A little bit surprised, JP. I think you would have wanted to stay out from here.
I would have thought so too, especially if you're a few of those drivers trying to make some leeway, but maybe the thought really might be, why not? I'm in the heart of the pack, may as well see if I can do something different if there's a long run and we get an error caution, and it's a big enough difference to where it could be a substantial difference, like we're seeing with most strategies, about 20 laps now for them. Guess who's the race leaders in that case, and likely coming into pit, everybody behind them, it would be Taylor, Harrington, Shallon, and Bensey, who are in the driver's seat, if they aren't involved in the next caution or 10.
I see Robert Malechka saying that he's going to have Cookout trying to power slide to a win. Rob, did he bring enough to share with everybody? Robert Malechka does have an end-of-line penalty to serve. I don't know where you would have wanted to serve it more. Phoenix or Suzuka. Very, very difficult to pass both tracks, but we've seen from Phil Krause that at least here with the cautions, you can cycle away up to the front.
Indeed, and with Suzuka, keep in mind, air wash still a significant portion of effect there, but I really love the racing at that track, we'll say, because it's, well, for one, it's a Japanese motorsport staple when you consider that circuit, but two, when it comes to the rhythm and flow of the track, so many iconic portions. 130R, the run to the Casio Triangle, that sweeping run through turns 1 and 2 ends up bringing a lot of dramatic moments when it comes to sim in particular, with some of the sends with the runs you can get down the front straightaway. It's the type of racetrack which has its tight braking sections, its aero wash moments, yes, in the terms of the snake, but it's also one where if you've got some confidence and have that pace and have a chance, you can go and lick the stamp, try and send it, and if you make it to the mailbox, you make up a spot. If you miss the mailbox and or knock it over, well, the fans are entertained.
Of course, it was the first track that Honda developed in Japan, but not really meant for IndyCar. That's why Motegi was a thing, to try and build another facility that IndyCar could call its home in Japan. Only went road racing there once in the real world after the oval was damaged, but we'll go there twice in this 2022 campaign. Back-to-back, once on the oval, once on the Grand Prix course. That's going to be a ball of fun. Suzuka as well, going to be an interesting challenge for Andrew Kinsella, back with the setup responsibilities to try and build something that is very, very raceable. So we've seen 6 cautions so far. 1 pit stop required for all drivers, no matter if you're one of the 4 that has come down this time around. It is again Alexander Van der Sat who is in control of the field as we enter into the restart zone. He'll wait, and a little bit earlier than normal, he'll jump on the throttle, and we're back underway with the MOZA Racing Phoenix 200. The top 4 were scrapping it out tooth and nail just before the caution flew. Don't think we're too far away from seeing that again. Adriano Pinheiro defends from Andrew Marquez.
Now to add a little bit of a wrench to that fight, guess who pulled out of the pit lane right as the green flag waved and will be traffic to reach? Matt Houston. He goes inside.
He's been hit enough today. I think he realizes he needs no further part of this battle at the front. Brian Carey, not with the best of launches, already 7/10 back from this battle within the top 4. Chris Lanini is going to get past Ryan Otis. That's a crucial move potentially there around the outside from the 92 machine. Going to be trying to hold it on side by side behind them as well. Pinheiro holding off Bradley Sexton.
Pinheiro tried to run the very, very top line that not many people have been able to try it, at least at any point tonight. Very close call, but Pinheiro's might have found something a little bit working. If he can maintain speed without going straight to the wall, that might be a good launch pad for 1 and 2.
Trying to work his way on forward. There's Bradley Sexton, confusing liveries with him and Marquez. From a brief glance, you'd very much get them swapped around. The New York native's going to lose a spot to Mitchell Riggs, and the Ascari Autosport teammate Barrett Rolfe will try and join the fun as well, but Rolfe's locked in side by side with Joe Branch. We wait, though, for this battle at the front to heat up once again. It's Power Slide, Private Label, Team Hype. Power Slide, Private Label, Team Hype.
Private Label, Team Hype again. Having a good battle with Power Slide here. Maybe that extra motivation of food is helping, but it's more so that motivation of having the track position, but another caution.
Well, I thought we were going to get a run. It's Matt Houston again. Not much more to say.
Yeah. And it's on his own. He'll let everybody go. And it's quite simple. Through 1 and 2. Looks fine. Wait Jacker a bit. Bye-bye race car.
And into the wall. New damage bottle strips the parts of the car once more. And we slow it down there with the leader, so I can understand why caution flew there. That would have been a close call for those up front.
It would have been a very disastrous situation if you didn't get the caution. Let's put it frank there too. Pinheiro elected to pit though.
Now, Harrington, Kinsella, there's a bunch of cars that are electing to come down this time by. I think the call here is with a couple more cautions, maybe they can make it to the end of this race.
That is a possibility, especially if you're having 5 laps of caution. That makes it a lot more easier to save fuel if you have that ability to use barely any gas at all for 5 laps under the pacing speed. So I absolutely don't blame him here. If it goes green from this point, massive gamble. If it goes caution-free caution for a decent fair bit and everybody else pits, they're in the conversation for the win. And downside is, Nunez is in that mix too. The interesting thing is how they cycle out, because some of them have just been let go next to those. The very tail end, Nunez in fact, on the tail end, Shawan, still committed to that call for, by 8 to 10 laps earlier than them.
Working lap 135. 7 cautions so far today. We've surpassed the 6 that we've seen the last 2 years that we've come to Phoenix. We're inching closer and closer to double-digit territory, which in the 8 previous races at the Phoenix Raceway for this Lionheart IndyCar Series, we have reached 4 different times. The largest margin of victory, 10.8 seconds. A couple of years ago when Adam Blocker won over Brian Carey. The smallest margin of victory, 0.038 seconds, just under 400th of a second, the 17th closest finish in Lionheart IndyCar Series history. The last 3 years, Adam Blocker, has finished on the podium in every single one of those races. He's run the gamut of the different steps as well, JP.
Well, it's not a surprise when it comes to Blocker and his domination in the past. It's just been the tough thing of trying to get yourself in those spots, and he's been able to be in those spots for the past 3 years, and that's easy to do when you're the pole sitter. And for the past 2 years in a row, led the most laps for a combined 201 laps to add to your totals. The major thing will be, how can he pair things out tonight? Because in the case of Blocker, I think it could be arguably said, in terms of his momentum and how this year has gone, he might really want this one to get things back together.
It looked like last week he was getting it back together. Racing from Jim Herrick's home in Indianapolis. Our race winner at the Lionheart Retro Series Triple Crown, first of the Triple Crowns, that Pocono Raceway. Jim Herrick was very kind to let Blocker race from there. On for maybe even a top 5 podium finish. A mistake on pit road, not enabling the pit road speed limiter, left Blocker languishing outside of the top 20. It's been that sort of a season for him. Reality is from here, JP, it's the car that makes their last pit stop first that is likely to win, assuming we go caution-free.
And it's all of the matter of the interest is, can you make it on gas if it goes caution-free? How will you be able to save? How do you manage the traffic in front of you? Do you want to pass that traffic? A lot of things to consider for the restart zone.
It's been stop and start, but Van der Sande will get us going once more in the MOZA Racing Phoenix 200. The 7th caution of the night comes to an end, and Blocker straight away on the offense, trying to harangue Phil Krause.
Krause though feeds him a bunch of dirty air coming to the corner. Nice clean launch for the top 10 overall though, single file.
Single file for them. It did look as though maybe Crystallinini was having a look on Ryan Otis. Didn't fare out in the way that the 92 was expecting. But again, it's been 4 cars breaking away at the front the last couple of restarts. Will that hold true once more? Blocker to the inside through turns 1 and 2. Not able to get alongside.
He wants to go, but the problem again is getting that run to the outside. And part of that has been just taking advantage of some of the errors passing. In our cases, waiting for that prime opportunity to outpace them in terms of several laps in a row. And Blocker right now is just struggling, it seems, to find that bit of clean air, and Krause continues to know this and just keeps on feeding him that extra bit of dirty air to have him push up the track.
Important phase of the race here. If we go green from here, the pit stop window will open in about 9 laps time. We've seen the fall off is not too significant. The fastest lap of the race has just been set as Alexander Van der Sant with a 19.240 puts in the fastest lap of the race. Connor Harrington from inside of the top 5 in qualifying down to 22nd has lost a couple of positions in the last couple of corners.
And that's not a surprise with some of the drivers. If you don't get yourself prepared mentally for the traffic, all those adjustments, you might lose a bit of ground or get too optimistic even. Wanting to pass by drivers, you just slide on back to the pack. Here's a look at Harrington in particular, 22nd. Strategy Rolodex has just not been there, where he's just not been able to fully get up to the front like I think that 44 has been hoping. In fact, strategies, if anything, have put him further back to these cars.
He's trying something, though. At this point, that's all he can really do. On board with Adam Blocker as they cycle their way into turns 1 and 2. Van der Sant trying to stretch those legs. The gap up to just over half a second. Now, we saw in the first phase of the race, Alexis Newsom built a 1-second buffer before she was mixed up in an incident with Dustin Wardlow. This time by, though, Van der Sant not able to break away too hard. We're getting closer to the 50 lap to go marker.
And you mentioned the things being tried differently by some, such as Harrington. Fuel maps absolutely have to be a mindset. No tires were taken by Harrington last stop either. And the difference from some of the drivers in terms of speeds from the front to the back is staggering. Some of them running as much as 10 to 50 miles an hour through the corners, all with one hope: get to checkered flag territory, get to HyperX victory lane on strategy.
It's been a stop and start MOZA racing Phoenix 200. 7 cautions, but we still have 1 pit stop left to go. There's plenty to play for. Van der Sant leads from Kraus, Blocker, Chin, and Carey as we duel ourselves in the desert for round 8 of the Lionheart IndyCar Series. You're watching RaceSpotTV. The run to the checkered flag coming up next.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Welcome back to RaceSpotTV and coverage of Round 8 in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. We're in the desert for the MOZA Racing Phoenix 200. My name is Arjuna Kankpati, alongside with me is Justin Prince. As we enter into the final pit stop cycle of the race, the cards are being thrown on the table right now. Alexander Van der Sant down onto pit road, Justin.
Pit window is open for the final time for a majority of the pack to get themselves to the end of the race. One thing is on many of those drivers' minds: please stay green to let things cycle, because tonight it's been a topsy-turvy night in the desert.
Van der Sant will be off of pit road, potentially 2 laps down. He will be praying that the race stays green. Josh Chin will be down on pit road as well. And crucially, Alexander Van der Sant will stay 1 lap down. If the caution flies, he's in a position to potentially cycle his way back onto the leading lap. He will very much be hoping and praying that does not prove to be the case. The run from Andrew Kinsella came to a close as we were under commercial break. A brief tech issue there. Disappears from the track, and by the time he reappears, it's in the wall. The iRacing gods have not been smiling down on many cars. Kinsella, the latest of our victims.
Yeah, and that's essentially to describe what just happened there. If you disappear from the track in that sequence, and there have been cases where you can disappear for up to 2 laps in some cases, your competitors don't know you're still on the track technically. So, in some cases, they'll just drive their normal line like you're not there, not knowing you're still battling with them on their end. And when they come back, turns out they're in the wall, and the only surprise that you get is, oh, I've got a 4X. Where did that come from? Oh wait, why is there a car in the wall?
So Alexander Van der Sant has been the first to pit from the leading group. He's currently running in 18th, is about to be 17th. Phil Krause has built up a 1.3 second advantage over Adam Blocker. We thought they would be the first car to pit that would win this race. Phil Krause is basically gambling. There will be a caution that comes out. Van der Sant already almost 5 seconds clear of Joshua Chin.
Not a surprise with some of the differences on that pace because of some of the drivers and their comfortability with the clean air pockets. Well, they've been filing out in terms of the pit stop sequences. A lot of those drivers on the pits, oh boy.
That was a slide from Phil Krause as he commits to pit lane, but now we'll get the sense of where Van der Sant will feed out in comparison to Philip Krause. Van der Sant trying to get on past on Connor Harrington. And he'll do that. Phil Krause again has a very early pit box, and he's going to be set down a full, probably 3 seconds, I'd have to assume, when things have all shaken out. He's got a long way to go before he'll roll himself off the limiter. Van der Sant has got those tires into the optimal window already. Adam Blocker's working lap 60 of the run. He's not far away from being down onto pit lane already. Van der Sant will enter turn 3 as Krause waits to get to the cones. He'll release himself from the limiter, but there goes Van der Sant working his way through. Van der Sant back to the front.
Van der Sant currently in the net advantage for the strategy call. Alonso's 1 lap down currently. Remember though, plenty of drivers are attempting to stretch it. The buffer time between many of them though, not as big. Blocker is in. Marquez can stretch it a little bit further. Check that, Matt Taylor can. Tony Schaumann a little bit further. Pinheiro, he is amongst those really trying to save it.
Left side of the screen, you'll see the stint length. We're looking at a 50 lap or so green flag run. Now, it's not green, so maybe expect 55 or 60 for some of these drivers, but gives you that indication. Pinheiro's working lap 32. He's by far the best driver in terms of strategy as it sits right now. Only 9 cars are left on the leading laps as it stands. Van der Sant and Krause, only 9/10 splits them. Blocker, 2.6 seconds off the pace. It's between Van der Sant and Krause if we go green from here.
And that will be major, to say the least. And the interesting wild card amongst this, the 44 of Harrington. I've noticed several times Harrington's been trying to clutch and coast his car to try and save fuel, and that's when he's been in the trap, especially turn 3 and 4, where I've seen him especially do it. Right there, he's doing it.
Yep, you can hear it, you can see the revs drop. He does have to be careful though. He's working lap 34, and with 32 to go, that will be a 66 lap run. Now he might be able to make it work, but I'd wager that already being only 12 seconds in front of Van der Sant, I don't think it's going to pay off. He's a second per lap slower than Van der Sant as it stands right now. Remember, though, that Harrington is struggling with the strategy. Was bumped down through the order as Van der Sant gets passed by Kraus.
What happened there? What happened to the 9/10 advantage? You know what I think happened? Van der Sant got stuck in the dirty air from Lionel Callisto.
We'll get a look if we can as to what happened there. Here we go. The RaceSpotTV replay never misses a beat. You just see that Van der Sant struggling with the dirty air, who's enjoyed clean air for so much of the race. Looking down low was Phil Kraus, committed through turns 1 and 2, and Kraus gets back to the point.
That's a well-executed slide job there. Van der Sant had been trying to pinch him down a little bit, a tiny bit, should say, in the previous fights. Now cycles it forward. Van der Sant's response? I'm going for first. He's a second back at first in terms of net strategy now, though.
And now he's got 3 cars between him and Phil Kraus. This is not what he would have wanted to see. That is an understatement. Now, Lionel Callisto is 2 laps down from the field, but he's not battling with the leaders. You're not expecting him to play nice, as it were. What a recovery it would be from Phil Kraus. Again, going back to Connor Harrington, though, it's not about getting the victory. It's about getting a better result. We're sitting outside of the top 20 during our last caution cycle. At the very least, he's trying to gamble to get back inside of the top 10. Ryan Otis, Bradley Sexton, side by side across the line. Otis gets on through. Mitchell Riggs now trying to work on the 26 machine.
Mind, amongst those drivers you've seen finding their Shawan still on that different stretch, but more so when it comes to these drivers. Otis, a very quiet one. He's had appearances in the top 5 at portions of the evening. Solid performances for some of those in that mid-pack currently on the pylon as we take a look through 1 and 2 in some of the other fights. This is Bradley Sexton.
Entering the pit stop window for the likes of Taylor, Shawan, Gonzalez, Nunez, Pinheiro, Branch, Hacker, and even Bensi might still be in a spot where they have another 10 laps or so to go before they'll work their way down to pit road. Connor Harrington is now only 1.2 seconds in front of Phil Kraus. He is now 2 seconds a lap slower than Kraus. I wonder if this gamble's going to pay off. Kraus will sail around his outside.
No way this pays off now. 1, because he lost what will be the net race lead, but 2, he's having to run basically at a crawl pace to try and stretch this around. This is not going to work. He's already a lap down to Matt Taylor. At this point, Harrington, there's no way. There's no way.
Van der Sant got very close with a lapped car there. And now Harrington maybe can play the team game. He can't even do that because he's so marginal on fuel. Van der Sant will sail on through. Next up will be Callisto, who's holding up Adam Blocker as they dive their way into turns 1 and 2 again. Looks like we might see a pit stop taker in the form of Luis Gonzalez Nunez. There's the 14 machine down onto pit road. He can't go any further. We wait for Taylor and Shawan to be the next to pit.
And then it gets really intriguing from the closing stages. Shawan has to pit, obviously. Pinheiro, though, has been drafting behind him, has in fact passed Shawan since Shawan's ducking into pit. Joe Branch, much better track position, same lap cycle as Harrington. Will he have to go massive fuel conserver? Will he have to pit? Ron Hacker, same strategy, 5 seconds behind Taylor currently. Those drivers have a lot to think about. 15-second buffer to those cars.
Taylor's coming in this time by, and even though Pinheiro's been saving fuel, he's pitting as well. I don't think that he was in a position to be able to go any further. The gamble was very much, would there be a caution to help him out, to save him in the strategy cycle? Joe Branch, Ron Hacker, Caleb Bensi, the last cars yet to come down and box. Phil Kraus is back on the leading lap and enjoys a 2.6 second advantage over Alexander Van der Sant. If he wins this race, 1, it will be a miracle. It will also be the first time that someone outside of the top 24 has entered victory lane here in Phoenix in the Lionheart IndyCar Series.
Right now at this point, if you're amongst those staying out here, you're wishing upon a star, because with a lot of competitors on track, it can be a lottery to win in some cases. With 4 in the lead lap, it becomes a little bit easier if you're Branch, Hacker, and Bensi. Kraus still that last car in the lead lap, and the tough thing is for Van der Sant, there has to be a tiny bit of urgency to have to think to be able to get forward to unlap yourself, but the tough thing will be, do you do this? And 2, How do you do this?
At this point, it's done. 16 to go. There's no way I think that gap's going to close. Now 3 seconds between Kraus and Van der Sande as they're tucked up behind Joe Branch, who continues to hold station as the race leader, yet to come down pit lane, working lap 52 of his run. 15 laps to go.
Acker's indicated he can't stretch it, pitting in this time. Bensi indicating he can't stretch it. He's a half a track ahead of Hacker currently. Can't make it as well. That leaves just one man standing on the strategy in Branch.
What a race this has been. Stop and start, yes, but it's been about being in the right place at the right time. 2 private label team hype cars will tell 2 very different stories. Connor Harrington with his fuel save already down to 20th position, and now down to 21st.
What a disaster for Harrington. Branch coming in this time. The window is done. Give Philip Kraus the advantage next time around.
The Kraus train is looking to pull into HyperX victory lane. He will retake the race lead next time by. It will be 12 laps to go.
Branch still trying to find his way to the pit box as you see Kraus with that big advantage of 3 seconds. Needs to keep it clean. Hope there isn't too much trouble behind him. As this battling hard for second, net now on track, Kraus to the lead.
Blocker gets past Van der Sande and is swapped back side by side, the 2 teammates. Maybe there's got to be some teamwork here. 3.2 the gap, running out of time. Maybe Blocker gets the word over the radio, give me a chance to close on the race leader.
Keep in mind, Blocker, 10 lap pressure tires. I don't blame him for the urgency. This needs to be done quickly though. Still with a decent shot, not able to clear yet, needs to try a slider.
The entry to turn 1, Blocker will get in front, slides up the track and will get back up to second spot. Blocker's had a tumultuous 2022. He looks to get back on track today, but as we work closer and closer to 10 laps to go, it's looking oh so likely that Phil Kraus will continue a remarkable streak that has seen him finish no lower than second. Look though at the traffic in front of the race leader.
That's the massive asterisk to that possibility right now, because Blocker, clean space, not too much traffic to deal with. Kraus, he's in a hornet's nest and a half right now, where you have 3 different hornet's nests, realistically speaking, with the amount of hornets flying in the sky. And this is the major time. Blocker needs to go. Blocker can't lose too much time for his traffic, and in turn, when Blocker gets to this pack, he can't afford to lose the time Kraus is losing.
It's close slightly, but remember, all this traffic that Kraus is dealing with, Blocker will have to deal with as well. We're down below 10 to go. If a caution flies, if we get a restart, lapped cars will be cycled to the back. That realistically is Blocker's biggest chance of victory here. 7 to go at the line.
Blocker, keep in mind, you've seen a bit of that interval shuffle was with traffic with just a single car. That has to be a concern. The interesting thing is Kraus has stopped the bleeding a bit despite all the shuffling because he's maintaining patience and just riding the choo-choo train.
In line behind 3 different cars who continue to try and look side by side through the dogleg into turn 2. Tony Showen's tucked up behind Phil Kraus. Van der Sande's going to get past Luis Gonzalez. Nunez, the gap down to 2.3 seconds. This time at the stripe. 5 miles to go.
Reaching the point of no return next time around. Next flag ends the race. The gap of 2.2 still for Blocker. But that's all still with Blocker having to pass at least 4 other cars to have a chance here.
But
and he
crucially, 2 of those cars are Power Slide teammates. Joe Branch and Tony Showen could very well get out of the way. 4 laps to go. The gap is now just 2 seconds.
Even then, that's a lot of aero wash you still have to deal with by the time you even get close to them before the move comes into play here. There's a lot to factor in. The bright side for Blocker, some of the traffic being cordial in his respective grouping.
What a remarkable end to this race. It's looking like it's going to be. Phil Kraus still in the Hornets' nest. Battle back for 13th sees Tyler Graf and Adam Frazier. And I say back, it's right in the Hornets' nest that we're talking about. Look how slow Connor Harrington is. They've all got to be careful. 3 wide off the corner. He's going at a snail's pace. Phil Kraus has got to be feeling on the edge of his seat. 2 miles left to go.
Just has to stay out of trouble. 1 car to deal with, and it's clean sailing from here. And there it is. Graf gives him the space. Kraus lap and a half away.
What a race this has been. Not putting in a qualifying lap, it looked as though Phil Krause was on a one-way ticket to Struggle City. But with 1 lap to go, Phil Krause has climbed his way up through the field. 36 positions gained. The streak of top 2 finishes will roll on in 2022. The Krause train is headed back to victory lane to make it 6 wins in 8 different races. And Phil Krause wins the MOZA Racing Phoenix 200.
What a run for Krause. What a race, to say the least. Caution breed caution for much of the run, yes. But in the end, it came down to good old strategy. When could you come in? How could you play in the traffic? And how could you maintain that deficit towards your competitors and keep that advantage to where you can win in comfortable fashion?
If it's not a positive sign for the butt kicker driver standings for the power slide adrenaline team, at the very least they will eat into the advantage that the private label Team Hype has, with Jason Brophy and Connor Harrington struggling and finishing outside of the top 20 here today. Not sure what to talk about these victory celebrations. There's no donuts from Phil Krause. Instead, it's just the jubilation of another victory in 2022. He burns it down by taking out the nose of Joshua Chin. What a drive from the number 19 machine. 2022 is the year of Philip Krause. Let's take a look at our SimRace 24/7 race results as Phil Krause celebrates in HyperX victory lane. What a drive. Plus 36. Phil Krause cannot be stopped. He wins by just over 2 seconds from Adam Blocker. Blocker returns to the podium, continuing a streak that dates back now 4 different races on the podium here at Phoenix, while Alexander Van der Sat backs up the victory 7 days ago by securing another good points haul, 3rd in the race. Joshua Chin will be delighted with that 4th place finish as his on and off season continues here today. After being on the podium 7 days ago, 4th in the results will be delight for the Florida native. Brian Carey, well, started in 18th, worked his way up into 5th. Ryan Otis plus 28 to get up into 6th. Matt Taylor tried a different strategy, was gambling on the caution coming out. It did not cycle in his favor, but he finishes in 7th, while Mitchell Riggs in 8th continues what's been a good season for the Ascari Autosports driver that very much is leading the charge instead of Barrett Roll. Adriano Pinheiro, well, up inside of the top 3 in qualifying, down to 9th in the race results. Ryan Beard completes the top 10. 11th goes to Chris Lanini in the 92 machine, plus 13 for him, plus 23 for Bradley Sexton. Give him a round of applause in the Synergy Motorsports number 26. Tyler Graf finishes in 13th with Adam Frazier in 14th. Joe Branch in 15th. Andrew Marquez loses 5 positions. He's down in 16th spot. Tony Schowen is 17th with Ron Hacker behind him. Luis Gonzalez Nunes and Caleb Benzie through the top 20. That's a good opening start to the season for Caleb Benzie. This might be his most difficult race so far in 2022. Connor Harrington tried something on strategy. It did not work in his favor, but he made it 63 laps at the end of the race to get to the checkered flag. He's down in 21st. Lionel Kalisto behind him with Chris Fowler, Jay Brunt, Michael O'Brien, and Kite Bombers back as well as Barrett Rolfe all surviving to the end. Andrew Kinsella also scampers across the line, 13 laps down after his technical issue saw him in the wall. But behind him, Stefan Larkham and Matt Houston, just a couple of the cars in our graveyard of Dallara IR18s here today. Jason Galvin, well, very frustrated to not be able to defend his victory from 12 months ago. Paul Jenkins, Alexis Newsom, Aaron Morgan, Alex Guyon, Dustin Wardlow, Jason Brophy, AJ Musselman, and Mike Rigney. The other cars not making it to the end. Alexis Newsom will be ultra disappointed given that she put it on pole position, breaking the lap record. A new race lap record as well. The history books will show Alexander Van der Sat is the fastest man that Phoenix has to offer. A 19.240 blitzes the previous qualifying lap record as well. And with that said, we welcome you to the HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX. Makes the premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play. HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. And let's head straight down to HyperX Victory Lane, where a rather surprised Phil Kraus is standing by with us right now. Phil, I'm sure you did not expect to be talking to us after the horror show of a qualifying performance, but it seems like 2022 is the year of Phil Kraus. Your momentum continues to rumble on.
Like the stamp and send it, right, Arjuna? Yeah, it was a really fun race for myself and our private label team Hype. Delora, yeah. Honestly, when I botched quali like that, I thought I was going to finish, I don't know, 20th at best, because it's such a hard track to pass at still, because it's a bit draft locked as well, and just the bottom doesn't work very well at this track. But yeah, I definitely didn't expect to come away with that, but got lucky with a caution, pit with the lead gang, and that effectively put me net 5th of that group, and then it was just overtake 5 cars and see what happens.
What's it like being in a race that's this stop and start? I mean, we had a 30-lap green flag run, 6 laps to the second caution, 10 to the third, 10 to the fourth, then another 50-lap run, but then they started coming in bunches again. What does it do for you, your mentality, especially knowing you've got to be aggressive to work your way forward?
Yeah, it definitely breaks up your momentum, especially since at the start of the race, a lot of the cars for me were having a lot of side-to-side lag just because of the amount of visible cars I had. I think I needed to turn it down, but I didn't get a chance to on one of my stops. But yeah, it was really hard to make positions early, and every time the yellow came out, I was getting a little annoyed because, you know, all those visible... words are hard, Arjuna, but all the visible cars, they come back into your view, and all of a sudden the cars are side-to-side, and you kind of got to wait like 10 laps before you can really start moving forwards again. But yeah, it definitely is a reset button on the mentality, and always have at it again, right?
I'm going to ask you about the setup, because it wasn't an Andrew Kinsella special. Instead, it was a Henry Bennett special today. What was it like in terms of racing? I know you've raced here in an open setup competition as well.
Honestly, I really enjoyed the setup. Henry did an amazing job making the setup this week, and I don't think we could ask much more of him, because it's going to be difficult to set up for a short track that races the way this did, and he did the best he could with what he had, because I think he had to make the setup on pretty short notice.
Well, you get a bit of a breather now. I'm sure you'll be slightly happy to hear that. 3 weeks before we go racing again, I'm sure the momentum's going to continue to roll. Congratulations, Phil Kraus, winner again in the Lionheart IndyCar Series.
Yep, cheers, Arjuna.
Phil Kraus, what a drive it was from him. Let's head down to the second step of the podium, where Adam Blocker is able to get his season back on some sort of roll. And Adam, difficult race in some ways with the stop and start nature, but ultimately a good qualifying converted into a good finish. What could you have done in the closing stages to have caught Phil Kraus?
Yeah, I mean, inevitably that sort of race with that many yellows on a short oval, it's kind of a crapshoot in terms of strategy. Ultimately, the strategy I picked was, I mean, it was the winning one. Honestly, I think the main thing I could have done different is when that restart, when Phil and I were on cold tires and I was in between Alex and Josh Chin. I just struggled on the first couple laps there, and Chin got past me, and I let Phil by, or he passed me on that restart. I think, if I would have been able to defend there from Phil, maybe I could have held track position just all the way through because we were on the same strategy. So, yeah, I think that's kind of the moment where I lost it. But, yeah, ultimately just happy to finish second out of that with how things have been going recently.
Must be good in some ways, though, to get it back on some sort of a roll, Adam. I mean, last week you're racing from Jim Herrick's house. It did look as though you had the speed racing on a foreign rig, but unfortunately maybe just not familiar enough with the buttons, not getting the pit limiter on in time. What's it been like at the start of this year? How are you looking forward to the rest of 2022?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, last week was really disappointing because I feel like I easily could have been on the podium. Had really good speed, but yeah, I messed it up on pit end, missed my pit lane button. But yeah, and I've had a few other races where I've been running well and just had things happen. So yeah, just get one result here, and the next few races I'm looking forward to. I should be good at Suzuka and Indy 500 I won last year. So yeah, definitely looking forward to those two and just trying to build some momentum here in the summer.
Of course, double points for that 500, so that's going to be important. Let's talk next up Suzuka, the first time that the Lionheart IndyCar Series will head to that track, and I'm sure setup's going to be important there, knowing how difficult it can be to follow with dirty air. What are you expecting when we go racing in 3 weeks' time?
Yeah, I don't know what weather, the series is going to select, but for sure the Reds are probably going to struggle, if I have to guess. But ultimately, I think it's like a really good track for this car. We've run it in Indy Open before, and it races pretty well, and you can also, and it's just fun to drive as well. So hopefully, my only hope is that the strategy is sort of open and everyone doesn't sort of have to do the same strategy. But yeah, we'll see.
Congratulations, Adam, on the podium. We'll see you from Suzuka.
Yep, see you guys there.
And from one power slide adrenaline driver to the next, Alexander Van der Sant continues the podium streak that's rumbling on for him. And Alex, you were the first to box from the leading 4 cars. Ultimately didn't play in your direction. What happened there?
Yep, ran it dry. I got lucky on that fuel saving strategy, like being able to eventually make it to the end with the way those cautions fell, but just didn't have, like, they had a tire advantage on me, simple as that. Phil caught me at pretty much the perfect time for him, right as I got traffic and right as my tires started to fall off a bit, and that was that. Not a whole lot I could do, but yeah, I mean, happy. I probably led the most laps. I mean, strategy was good. It got me ahead of a lot of people, so I mean, can't ask for too much more. But just wanted to be 2 spots higher. But oh well.
What was it like from your perspective, leading so many of the restarts in a stop and start race? How hard was it for you to keep up your momentum? How hard was it to keep up your focus?
It wasn't too bad. You were able to get into a rhythm pretty easily with the setup, so yeah, it just felt pretty nice. Overall, it was a little sketchy on the restart sometimes, especially like the first few that I was leading, because I didn't really know what tools I would be able to use with the condition my tires were in, but it was tricky too saving. I knew Chin was on the same strategy as me, so if you're in the same fuel map as the person behind, it's very hard for them to get around you on the same tires. So it was just being patient and hitting the number and seeing what I could do.
Next up, we go to Suzuka. We saw what you could do wheel-to-wheel with Phil Kraus at Watkins Glen, the first driver to actually best him on track so far in 2022. What are you expecting when we head to the land of the rising sun?
Yeah, I've actually done a pretty. I've done a race here before and won it. So I know, I kind of know how it drives, and I'm familiar with the track in the IndyCar. So yeah, hopefully that knowledge, I'm able to translate that knowledge and keep up the momentum I've had lately and get another win here.
Thanks for joining us, Alex. We'll see you in 3 weeks' time from Suzuka.
Thanks, guys.
That wraps up our podium interviews. We thank the drivers for taking the time to come and chat with us. What a race it was, yes. Maybe a few more cautions than we would have wanted to see. Interrupted, I'm sure, the momentum, the focus, and the strategy for many of the drivers, but one that I'm sure many will reflect on as we head forward into the next third of the season. 8 races done in a 22 race campaign, and next up I asked a couple of the drivers about it. We head to Japan, we head to the legendary Suzuka. We've seen some moves being slung here into the hairpin, for example, even through 130R in the real world, but we know that in an IndyCar with push to pass, you can set up opportunities in the run to turn 1, and maybe through some of the twistier, tighter corners as well, Justin. It's going to be a technical challenge. I think many of the drivers, especially those that favor the road courses, looking forward to this one.
It's such a prestigious racetrack with its history, as we talked about earlier on tonight. It's also a track where, if you want to be able to win at that facility, you need to be brave, you need to be consistent, you cannot afford to let your tires hit that grass. It's the type of racetrack where, if you want to contend, you need to make sure your preparation is all set to go. We take the green flag in June.
June the 15th. The drivers will get a brief break before we go racing again 3 weeks from now. Same time, same place on RaceSpotTV, 10:05 p.m. Eastern, 7:05 p.m. Pacific. Join us for our trip to Japan. That's going to wrap things up, though, from the Phoenix Raceway. What a treat we had here today. Yes, a couple more cautions than we would have wanted, but plenty of strategy games all the way to the very end. Before we say goodbye, we'd like to thank all that make it possible, starting with the title sponsor of the Lionheart IndyCar Series. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. Butt kicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let lets you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tire, and engine redline. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com.
Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level. Visit www.nextlevelracing.com.
MOZA Racing is revolutionizing sim racing with the development of industry-leading hardware and software products like their R9 direct drive wheelbase and GS steering wheel. Featuring zero-delay wireless technology and made from high-end materials, MOZA Racing delivers the precision you need to reach victory lane.
Gomez Sim Industries are makers of high-end esports equipment and controls. Precision built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com.
It's not just them, but so many more that make this happen. To learn about the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series or the 3 competitions the sanctioning body puts on, visit LionheartRacingSeries.com. We'll be back in 3 weeks' time. Of course, in the real world, it's the month of May. This weekend, the 106th running of the Indianapolis 500. Join everyone on social media and on NBC joining for the greatest spectacle in racing. We'll have our own take on that from Speedway, Indiana at the end of the month of June. All eyes focus on Suzuka next time the IndyCar series go racing, but there's plenty more intrigue in Lionheart competition yet to come up. Of course, 3 competitions. Next up will be the Lionheart Retro Series on the 2nd of June. Join us for the Extreme Scoring Nashville 150 presented by MOZA Racing before on the 13th of June. It's time for the Speedway Series to go fast once more for the Next Level Racing Michigan 200. Today, though, it's all about Philip Kraus. What a run in 2022 the Wisconsin native has been on. It's been the Kraus train that has been stopping off in victory lane across of the world. Today, he had to do it the hard way, starting from the back, but with the same end result, in victory lane. Still a long way to go in the season, but it's looking like Phil Kraus is unstoppable. On behalf of the team at RaceSpotTV, we thank you for joining us for this presentation of the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. 3 weeks from now, we'll see you at Suzuka, but on behalf of Justin Prince and myself, Arjuna Kankipati, we bid you farewell from the desert. Phil Kraus is a machine and a man on a mission. A victory again today continues a streak that we thought impossible watching Adam Blocker last year, but Phil Kraus is trying to usurp the king of Lionheart, and there's only one way to do that, to beat him at his own game. Phil Kraus drives through the field and wins the MOZA Racing Phoenix 200. We'll see you next time on RaceSpotTV. For now, so long and goodbye.